topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Legacy Leavers series on Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. The series showcases experts, changemakers, and disruptors leaving a lasting legacy with those sharing their wisdom with the world.
Good morning, good evening, and good day to you all, and welcome to another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Now, today we're going to be talking about the topic of legacy and building it in a present tense activity, or building it is a present tense activity, more to the point. So it's going to be a very exciting topic today, and I'm going to be sharing that topic conversation with Christy Maxfield. Now, she's the founder of Purpose First Advisories, which is a powerhouse dedicated to helping business owners maximize their income, their wealth, and their freedom. And she's an expert in business performance, growth acceleration, and exit planning. Christy helps entrepreneurs build businesses that thrive today and create lasting legacies. So if you're an entrepreneur who wants to do more than just survive, this is absolutely a conversation for you. So let's get started, and please help me welcome to the stage, Christy.
Thank you so much for having me, Sally.
You are very, very welcome. Now, as you know, this topic of legacy and building businesses is very, very dear to my heart. So I'd love you to share a little bit with the audience as to where your beginning journey is as an entrepreneur and give them some context of why we're talking about this today.
Sure. I actually never thought I'd be an entrepreneur because I started life as the child of one. My dad owned our family florist in New Jersey, where I grew up. And I thought it was a very hard way to make a living, particularly flowers, because within 2 weeks they would be gone. And so there was a lot riding on people choosing our florist for their floral needs. So I actually spent the first part of my career in professional fundraising, working with nonprofits in the States, and then transitioned into working with startups. And 7 years ago, launched Purpose First Advisors so that I could help other people build their businesses. So becoming an entrepreneur was kind of a surprise to me, but feels really natural and where I was supposed to be all along.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful when you suddenly settle into that thing and you go, oh my God, I'm home, and you can just sort of settle into it and sort of it's never a cruise. Often it's not a cruise, but it's, it's that, that cruise where you're enjoying the ride.
Yes, it is great.
I think that's awesome. So I'd love to ask you up front, as opposed to a little bit later in the show, what does legacy really mean to you, having had that experience?
For me, it's in the tangible sense, it's creating things that outlive you. So things that are bigger than you alone. And in a broader sense, I think of like my own father, who passed away about 10 years ago. The legacy he leaves is that I reference him almost daily in the work I do, whether it's directly with a client sharing the experience of our family, or simply being inspired by, frankly, the things he did well and the things he didn't do so well. And so if I think of legacy as, well, someone remembers me and somebody speaks my name, that is part of that. So I hope to make enough of an impression and to build something bigger than myself that will last beyond me.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I think that's the thing. Bigger. I hear that phrase a lot. Bigger than myself, or contribution, or working with the collective and making a difference.
Correct.
All of those things, both from a combination, from a singular, and all of those perspectives. So thank you for sharing that. So obviously, your family business has really shaped your perspective on entrepreneurship early. And then you found, that comfortable home where you can now excel and do what you do. What was it that actually led you to actually launch the Profit First Advisory, and the impact that you wanted to make, especially after working in such diverse industries, from non-profits to startups, and before you found your journey? There's quite a mix and an unusual journey.
It is. I think what I realized was when I did the startup in 2010, which was my first independent entrepreneurial venture, one that I wasn't raised in, that what I found is I was really good at what I deemed operational entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I wasn't going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning like my co-founder did and come in the next day and say, I created 3 new corporations, 3 new LLCs. But I was uniquely suited to take the ideas and then turn them into actions that would result in actually building the business. Today, if you're familiar with the book Traction and Gino Wickman, you might call me an integrator. But back then I didn't have that language. So when I realized I was really good at that and I enjoyed it, and then I could bring that perspective to other people's dreams, because those visionaries were coming up with ideas all day, every day, in the social entrepreneurship space, in the commercial entrepreneurship space. And sometimes I was the crusher of hopes and dreams, because I could see where the gaps in the plan were and challenge that founder to really probe more deeply about what they were trying to accomplish, and suggest that maybe there were other ways they could get to where they wanted to go. But that's where I think I knew that I could take all of the life experiences I had and then use them to offer a perspective to owners that they often struggled with finding anyone in their own circle who could do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because one of the phrases I share with clients all the time is, we can't read our label when we sit inside our own jar, so we don't see things. And like you, I have an implementation, I suppose, gene in me. So I'm more of that generator, and moving things along, whereas you're sort of that little bit before me on the sides of the visionary. And interestingly enough, I get called Sally Smash sometimes too. So we might have a little bit of a flair there, but I think it's so important, and where you've been gifted with having the family entrepreneur, and having your father to be able to reference, the ability to tell stories to help provide the context to the perspectives, become very powerful. So that's been a beautiful gift and a legacy that your father certainly has been able to pass on to you.
Indeed. I think being able to relate to people's experiences, and not that we always have to have experienced something in order to be able to have the empathetic approach, but to also offer not just my family experience, but the de-identified experiences of my other clients, to reassure owners, you're not alone in this. Everyone feels these things. Most everyone I know is struggling with some of the same things you are. These are the things that I have seen work. These are the pitfalls I've seen people fall into. And it can be very isolating to own a business. And so being able to help them see that there's lots of different experiences we can draw from, and telling those stories. I think normalizing telling the stories of what worked, what didn't work, what kind of sort of worked, but didn't really, but we salvaged it anyway. There's a lot of stories to tell, and helping people tell their stories is an incredibly important part of what I know you do.
Yeah, and for me, the storytelling, regardless of the content point, but those mastermind conversations, or those, over a coffee and tears. We sometimes call them coffee and kisses, but sometimes they're coffee and tears conversations. When you're allowing somebody to tell their story and they're hearing it. Them saying it, they actually have their own beautiful lessons, because they actually have their own aha moments and join those
They do.
dots. So that's where the storytelling and the story sharing, as business owners, because we feel and often experience the isolation of being on our own, thinking that we're the only one in the world that this is occurring to. But the reality of it is, it's actually very common, and it occurs with everybody. We just take our different turns at experiencing it, and then it comes around again and we experience it again. But sharing those stories really help people find and solidify and stick to their vision, and what they're wanting to do. And you're leveraging off the shoulders of giants if you're learning off other people's mistakes and things as well.
You are. And I think the ability to shine a bright light on, these are the pitfalls I encountered. You don't need to experience the same pitfalls. You'll find your own. So let me help you with the ones that I know about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes I find people will look to other entrepreneurs' story for a secret sauce. If I do these 6 things, I will therefore be able to have the same success they've had. And I think we need to take their stories not only in the literal sense of I did this sequence of things and I had this end result, but also in the more abstract, that I tried things and my way may not work for you. But can you take the underlying themes of perseverance or experimentation, creativity, authenticity, and rather than looking for the formula that's going to accelerate your growth, realize that everyone's story is different. Going from fundraising to doing a startup to working with business owners, when folks ask me, tell us how your career path, I can sense this desire of, well, if I understand how you did it, I might be able to do some of it myself. And I'm like, I didn't even know that you could do what I did until I did it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like, that's also really liberating and inspiring of, you're not alone. You're not the only one feeling this way. And your story is your story.
Yeah, very much so. And I think one of the conversations I've had, especially in the personal development arena, which I've sort of spent most of my life in, when like me, you're a seminar junkie and you want to be like the guru at the front of the room. But the reality of it is, the guru at the front of the room is probably a very different personality type with very different skills, etc. So you actually don't want to be that cardboard cutout of somebody else, but you do want to understand the strategies that they've utilized, so you can cherry pick what's going to work best for you as an individual. And I always remember one of my mentors saying to me, who I'm speaking for this evening actually, saying to me, for God's sake, Sally, stop studying strategies. Understand yourself 95% of the time, because when you understand yourself, you can actually know which strategies to cherry pick and how you can mold them to suit what you're trying to achieve. But understanding the principles is great. So I think where that sharing the stories, you get to sort of hear, oh, that's I can understand the strategy, but they've used it a little bit differently. Perhaps I could use it in this manner. And that's that
Yes.
self-understanding that comes into play.
And that's very inspiring, that I can use the lessons I've learned, but apply them in different ways, which is why we also encourage business owners to look outside their own industry for innovation, so that they're not just confined to the norms of what they know or their industry knows. There might be a like and similar corollary somewhere else where we can learn something from it and then adapt it, modify it. And like you said, we know ourselves, we know our business. So can we take that knowledge, that unique perspective, and then apply this strategy to that situation? And that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that to me is the role, is the exhilaration of the roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur.
It is.
Yeah, which is good. So I want to talk about now building that business with the end in mind, which
Yes.
we hear that, do it, let's put the end in mind all the time. But when it comes to a passion business or something that we've found and we really love, I've done this myself until you sort of get over that hurdle and you realize it. And I see so many of my friends that are starting or having career transition changes, etc., where they start building a business that ends up becoming a job. And then they have that realization of, I've ended up there. I now want to build the business. So talk us through what is the distinction and what you really mean by that. And then we'll talk about some of the problems that you see and how you've helped people overcome that.
Sure. By building with the end in mind, like any project, if we know what we want to end up with, we can reverse engineer how we get there and be much more precise in about where we're going. So, and when building our businesses with the end in mind, it's not that today, the day you start, let's say, is the day we think about the exit 20 years from now, as much as it is about knowing what you want to build. So if you want a job and you build a job, I want that for you. But if you want more than a job, if you want to unlock the personal freedom, the financial benefits, the creative application of your talents that owning a business can provide for you, then it has to be about more than what you can currently control and envision today, and much more about what are you building toward in the future. And when we do that, when we say, when I get further along in my career, when I get further along in my life, this is how I want it to look. Then we know whether we're building a business that we think we want to sell to a third party, or if we think we want to sell it to employees, or if we think we're going to want to sell it or bequeath it to children. Or it may be, I want this business to operate at a higher level than a job, fulfill my income and savings goals. And when I'm ready to be done, I want to be able to stop working when I want to on my own terms. There is no right answer of what the end is, but we have to think about it in the beginning in order to make the choices that allow the end to be probable or possible.
Well said.
Particularly if we do think selling the business and turning it from a illiquid asset to a liquid asset for our families. If we are thinking, oh, I'm going to need to retire on this, or, oh, this will give me wealth that I can transfer onto others who don't necessarily want to run the business, but who I want to give the benefit of what I've been able to build, then we have to plan those things in advance. They don't happen just because we think they're going to, like, they just don't. And when you get to the end, I've had people say to me, I thought I'd work forever, and forever has arrived. It's much harder to go back and change some of those decisions to try and increase the value of the business than it would have been to build them in from the outset.
Yep.
And that's really what I want people to think about is, if you think you might someday want these options, whatever those options are, then the things we know you need to do include making sure the business can run without you. And that's the single biggest hurdle for any founder.
Yeah, I'm giggling because some of the repeating words I often say to people, and I know them as Sally nags, other than the consistency one, which is a little bit more content related, but consistency does play.
Oh, consistency works in all realms.
I knew you were going to jump on that. Fantastic. The other one is replicate yourself and duplicate yourself, or duplicate and replicate, depending on what's happening when. So yes, please dive into more of that. Let's have it, Christy.
So duplicate yourself, replicate yourself, and make yourself redundant or irrelevant, right? Which it sounds like, what? This is my business. It's my business. But the business actually is a thing other than you. And especially when you get to hiring people and you're serving a wide base of clients, I mean, it is doing things that you alone are incapable of doing. So it can't just be you. It can't just exist to serve just your needs. or your emotional desires, right? It by definition has become something bigger than you. And insisting on staying in specific roles in the business means that you are artificially limiting what it's capable of doing and
Well said.
limiting your own personal freedom. Because I have not met an entrepreneur who didn't say, I started my business so I could have more flexibility, do things the way I want to do them, do when I want to do them, be the one in charge, be the one making decisions. There's always some aspect of control and flexibility.
Mm.
And we tend to favor control over flexibility.
Yeah.
So if I stay in control, I limit my flexibility because it have to be there.
Yeah.
Can't take a 3-week vacation.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we can't go on, we all say we can't go on holidays at the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't, not right now. Not right now. There's never a good time. So I think really interrogating your own desires about, is it more important that this business grow in a way that it can actually give me the flexibility and personal freedom that is so important to me? Or is it more important that I stay in control of key aspects of this business? Because when we look at the big business owners of the world, they're not showing up at their office every day. And if they are, that business can still run without them being there. Mm. It is paying them to not show up, usually.
To not be there, yes.
And most of us never get there because we equate our ability to make an income with our ability to show up and perform. But if we build a business that's actually independent of us, it is imbued with our values, it is imbued with our vision, it is strategic goals aligned to what we're trying to create in the world, but we've given it the money, the people, the technology, the systems, the processes to do that without us necessarily showing up every single day. And certainly, even if you're showing up every day, you're not doing a key function in the business. You are acting as the leader, the strategist, the visionary, the investor. Mm. You transform your relationship to work. And that's really hard because we're all taught to be really good worker bees.
Yeah. And I've loved this conversation. I really love the distinction between freedom, which everyone talks about, and freedom in my world is definitely control. Got a lot of control freak in me. But the flexibility, and for me, I'm having a realizations where, I've still got my finger on the control button in certain aspects of my business, but in other aspects, there's total flexibility. And it's been interesting for me just having the conversation. The shift around that is, okay, well, what can I do to be more flexible in that scenario? And that that question, how can I be more flexible just in that specificity? Is causing my little head to go but at the same time I feel empowered by that because I can actually now see, I can't see them clearly yet, but I can feel the possibilities there. And that, when you're building a business, whether it's a lifestyle or a freedom business or whatever you want to call it, we do come into the business to create freedom for ourselves, but freedom, as you've said, we do show up as worker bees. So it's that freedom of the ability to be able to show up and be the bee versus the freedom to be flexible, whether we do show up or we don't.
Yeah, and how we show up and how often we show up and what it is. I mean, I might be very, very good at the technical aspect of the business that I've developed. But after a while, I need other technicians to come in and do that role. And I need other specialists to come in and do other roles in the business that I'm probably not actually good at anyway. Yeah. And then if that actually frees up more time and space, that's where we can explore what is this business allowing me to do that gives me meaning and purpose. My work alone might make me feel fulfilled, but I see profit as a way of having the means and the options and choices to do the other things that fuel me and make me feel like I'm making an impact in the world. Yeah. And if more of us, and I'll say this even for myself, because it's not like I've mastered this in any way, shape, or form, but when we can cultivate things that give us meaning and purpose outside of our work, it makes it much easier to make decisions about the business as an entity unto itself, as opposed to an extension of me.
Well said.
And that's the things people struggle with in life transitions, right? Well, I'm not a mom, but if I were a mom, becoming an empty nester becoming a mom would be a life transition. Becoming an empty nester would become a life transition. Just like choosing to retire at a certain age will be a transition. So we're constantly, whether we own a business or not, we're constantly grappling with who I am, and usually who am I in relation to others. And what I'd like is for business owners, since that's the folks I work with, I would like for them to be able to carve out enough time to ask themselves, who am I at my core, regardless of my relationship to others or my business? And then how is the business just one of the many ways I express who I am and share my talents and do all those things? Because then the life transitions become a little less scary. It's really still hard to go from single to married, or raising children to not raising children, and working and retiring. But I have to believe it gets easier if we actually normalize the discussion of meaning and purpose outside of work.
Yeah. And everything, I believe, becomes easier when we've actually got I'm going to call it a plan. So if you think you're standing in the middle of a multitude of forked roads, and you've got a compass and you've got a map, you've got the tools to be able to determine and be discerning as to which direction you go. But if you're aimless and you don't have any of those sorts of things, any road's a good road.
Well, and lots of folks take the perspective of, well, I love doing all of these things, and all of these ideas are good, and all of these forks in the roads could be exciting and meaningful. That's when I want you to close your eyes and say, if you're waking up tomorrow and you're in a totally different place, what does that place look like? Because you're probably the time of day you wake up, the surroundings that you wake up in, the people who are there, the conversations you're having, the experiences you're experiencing. That tells you which fork to take, because some of those forks lead to that and some don't.
Yeah.
And I agree. I would love to live all those multitude of lives.
Too. I love a good adventure. But
right? I would totally love to. Yeah. But by just continually standing at the crossroads, I don't get to live any of them. So it's again a bit of a scary experience to say, like, in my heart of hearts, even if it's something I'm not sure I want to tell other people yet, what is it that I want? And then what am I willing to do to get there? Am I willing to step out of a role in my business to get there? Am I willing to delegate more responsibility to other people? Am I willing to spend money and hire additional people? Am I willing to say, I'm not the best person to be at the helm of X because I've taken it as far as it can go? And for it to be bigger than even I can imagine, I need to put other people in this organization now. You have to have a really compelling vision of where you're going to wake up that magical morning when you don't have any of those other encumbrances, because you've designed your life to be exactly where you want to be. And that's an exercise in faith too, because it can, it stretches the imagination and really challenges us to think beyond what we've probably ever experienced.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also too, there's so much elegance in the simplicity of the questions you've posed. And I think if people do take that time and do have that pause, this is a Sally coming on, just so you know, and
awesome.
Awesome. Take that pause and actually spend some time answering those questions. It does make such a difference to the way in which you make decisions and how you move forward and all those sorts of things. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as entrepreneurs is we can see the dream e.g. we've got the visionary, but the difference is when we can feel at the experience of what we're trying to achieve, and then that, you know, when you're connecting the mind and the heart, then there's a very, very different decision making process, because the purpose is coming through, etc. So in that, just shifting gears, because I think you've crafted some really good questions for the audience to ask of themselves, which is awesome. I think some of the other things to highlight is, as entrepreneurs, we all have challenges and limiting beliefs, and do I dare say that word, overwhelm, you know, that blessed one that comes in so many forms, in so many different directions all at once. But have that. So what would your advice be to entrepreneurs that are struggling with their limiting beliefs and this overwhelm process? I know we've gotten to ask some key questions, and that's likely to assist with that, but what else would you suggest?
Particularly on the limiting beliefs, is I often ask the question, what would you do now if you're trying to get the end result that you're describing to me? And they usually know exactly what they would do.
Yes. It's instinctive, isn't it? But they're doubting.
It's instinctive. Like, I have yet to meet somebody who's like, I have no clue. I mean, everybody has at least one clue.
Yeah.
And then I ask, so why wouldn't you be doing that right now? And that's usually when I get well, there really isn't any reason not to do it right now, except for that limiting belief of, if I do it, I'll open the door and be overwhelmed by whatever response I get. If I do it, I'll be disappointed because no one will come through that door. And that will be a whole nother set of emotions. If I do it, it might not turn out the way I want to. And then I don't know what I'm going to do, because we're trying to anticipate
control
what's going to happen.
Control freak knows that song. Yeah.
And I mean, I got a lovely compliment from a client who said, when I did the thing I knew I needed to do, and I did it because you basically said, is there any reason why we're not doing it right now? Because there might be a good reason. There might be a really great reason. I just don't know what it is. And then she's like, oh, that turned out even better than I thought. And I was getting in my own way again. Like, she didn't even necessarily recognize that she had created barriers and limiting thoughts until I asked her, why wouldn't you just do that right now?
And that's such a powerful question.
And I didn't even know I was asking such a powerful question until it got a powerful result.
That is just
and on overwhelm, what I would suggest is, I'm a recovering find the right answer person. Like, there's one right answer for each question, which is not a thing. There are many right answers to many different questions. So I'm learning that myself. And I think the overwhelm is that we start to anticipate all the things that will happen as a result of things we want to do right now. Either we have a lot of things on our plate already, and the idea of adding something more is overwhelming, or we think if we do these things, it will bring all these things to our plate all at once, and we will feel overwhelmed. So on this latter one, I would say, I wish for you to be full of the abundance that you think is going to be created by your actions. But in all likelihood, everyone won't come all at once. They will come in over time. And if we are blessed with them coming all at once, we will figure it out.
Absolutely.
A wait list. We'll hire some more people. Like, we will figure out that blessing. But we're not going to not do the thing because we're afraid we'll be overwhelmed by the result, is my hope. If I already have a full plate, that's where I have to start thinking about, what are the other ways that I can accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish, which is a series of things. Are these actually important things? Do they actually move me forward? Or is the reason they're still on the list because they're not actually as relevant as I think they are, but I'm not willing to take them off the list?
Key phrase there was still on the list.
Still on the list.
Yes.
Or I don't have the money to hire somebody to do X for my business, but if I took Y off of my family household responsibilities and was able to get some of those things taken care of in a different way, might I free up some mental, emotional, physical time to be able to do this other thing? So particularly for women business owners, I think the investment in increasing their own personal capacity has to be looked at more broadly than just what capacity can I increase in the business, is what capacity can I increase in other parts of my life?
Yes.
If I'm having meals delivered, I now don't have to worry about planning five meals, 5 days, for the Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And that can be very freeing. I called my husband before this interview and I said, please bring home dinner because when I'm done, I just want to be done.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
That was my way of creating more mental and emotional capacity for myself tonight.
Yes.
Was to say, please just take this off. And I delegated and I gave him the autonomy to do it the way he wants to do it.
Yeah.
It is off my plate. Right.
And that in itself is such a simple thing. It sounds so simple, but as women business owners, it's actually a skill and a muscle that we've got to grow into, that we've got to bring on. So I'm really glad you shared that, because it is such a simple thing to nurture ourselves doing things like that.
Yes.
And it gives so much benefit in doing things like that, but it's often the last thing that we do or we think about, because we've got to have that job on our list. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, and I've been married 21 years and it's probably the first time I've done it. And if it's not the first time, it's been a long time since I've done it. So again, we are all practicing these things, right? And that's also why we bring in strategic advisors, because like you said, I can't read my label while I'm in the jar. I also can't have that level of creativity about my own situation because I'm too close to it all. It's overwhelming to think about the options. So can I get someone else in the room to help me really just lay it out, sort it, and say, honestly, I think if we're trying to do this, then we're probably best served by doing this and then this.
Yeah.
And the other things are just other options for another day.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to deal with overwhelm. Asking for help is probably at the top of that list.
Thank you for saying that too, because that's another Sally nag. So well done.
I love my Sally nags. I didn't even know I was stepping into Sally nags, but
thank you.
You're brilliant, so I'm not surprised.
And likewise, so I think this, and these are lessons that I've learned myself, and we all can continually learn. I've even got a necklace that says "Ask." And I have to remember to wear that necklace for myself, because I'm very good at telling other people. And it's like, you know what, you really should be taking your own advice on this. Perhaps we need to wear that necklace a little bit more. Fun and silly things to remind myself. And don't people love it when you ask for help and they're able to help you? And doesn't it happen so fast and effortlessly? And then we all wonder why we didn't do that sooner. Is a lesson.
I've actually heard, and I think it might be Simon Sinek, but I can't be 100% sure. The idea that you build trust by asking and accepting help, not by doing everything all by yourself. And I was like, whoa, Nelly, right? Because if I show you I'm super competent, well, you'll trust me, of course. And I can show you I'm super competent by doing it all by myself. But if I actually ask you for help and I let you help me, well, that's a trust bond where I've been vulnerable and I've been receiving. And now, in all likelihood, you'll be more comfortable feeling vulnerable and receiving. And I was like, man, you kind of just blew my world apart.
Love that. You've just done the same for me, because to me, that's the, trust on the pedestal or trust in the bond.
And it's the bond. You're 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Boom. No words. Yep. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. One of the things that I also just wanted to ask, because we've talked about mentors, you're an advisor, I'm an advisor, and we've had and we've obviously got our peers around it. How have you found all of those people have actually helped shape not only business, but also legacy for you and the clients that you work with?
Well, the advisors who literally help me shape legacy for my clients are the technical specialists that do the things that have to be done that I cannot do. So if we're truly going to take care of the business as an entity and asset unto itself, we need lawyers, plural. We need CPAs, we need tax advisors, we need financial wealth managers, and we need them all to be working in conjunction with and aligned to what the owner's trying to achieve. Right. And so in a very literal sense, the only way that owner is successful in realizing the full vision of their legacy is for those advisors to do the thing that they are uniquely qualified to do. For me personally, I'm in the same position you are. I can't read my own label. I'm no better at that than anyone. And knowing things and doing things are two totally separate things. So I can know all day long that I should ask for help, or all day long that I shouldn't back to back schedule myself, or all day long that, taking a break will actually make me more productive than pushing through. But I have to be reminded of those things just as much as my clients need to be reminded of those things.
Yep, me too.
And so finding those people you trust who can turn to you and give you your own advice back to you and being willing to take it. I mean, I think that's what we have to remember is we all need someone in our life who can do that, no matter what our specialty is.
Totally agree. I'm going to ask a bit of an odd question here. I've seen a bit of a shift in the marketplace, and these are very much my words. So I would have said towards the end of last year, I started to really see people start to collaborate with each other. So this shifts from the masterminds and the helping each other out and having those conversations. And having a team of strategic advisors that we support us and support our business. So that's, to me, is the sort of the benchmark and the standard. And towards the end of last year, I started to see a lot more people talking about collaboration. When you use the term partnerships, but I really look at collaborations. But I'm really seeing a shift towards, and my wording for it would describe it as the collective, where the collectives of people are coming together that have got their own unique visions, but they've got complementary visions, etc., to other people, and they're just moving, as I'm going to say, as a force, almost as a movement together. How are you seeing that in your world, and how do you think people can experience more of that, or even leverage that if you are?
So I haven't seen it as clearly as you have, but I also come from a nonprofit social enterprise background. And so from that perspective, the idea that you would have a shared agenda, that isn't my agenda, it's not your agenda, it's we've come together and said, these things are in our mutual best interest. We've got a few things that neither of us, I don't care about that thing on your agenda, you don't care about this thing on my agenda, but we've agreed to work on a shared agenda together. That in doing that, there is a collective movement that is incredibly powerful. And I think there's a lost art of being able to negotiate a shared agenda for a common good at the expense of staying in control of our own agendas.
Beautifully articulated.
So, if you're entrenched in it's my agenda or no agenda, it's my standard of excellence or no standard of excellence, then you miss the opportunity to really exponentially increase and redistribute and repurpose resources and mobilize people to do things that are bigger than themselves. If you can't say, listen, I don't agree with you on 100% of things, but if we can agree on these 80% and stay hyper focused on them, we could move mountains. So I haven't necessarily seen it among my individual business clients, but from a world perspective of would I like to see more of that in the world? Absolutely. And I think in response to all the turmoil, at least in the States right now, there is an opportunity for business owners again to say, or anyone, but in this case, business owners, to say there are certain things that we need that will make all of us able to be successful, that, there's sort of prerequisites that we need as business owners that won't necessarily give anyone an unfair advantage, but will in fact create a circumstance where the coveted meritocracy can actually occur. Where if you do have a better product and a better service and a better way of doing something, you will come out ahead. But if there's tons of disruption, if everything is up for grabs, if there are no norms anymore, and any given day the situation can change, it's very hard for us to agree on sort of what the table stakes are for moving forward. So I'm all for a shared agenda.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that powering things moving forward, and especially for business owners to figure out how to leverage that strength and solidarity and collective.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful word in there. There's strength in the movement, but there's and the strength I see with how you've expressed it there is there's the grace of that strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I'm thinking about your question even more, I do see what I have seen and experienced directly is a willingness among colleagues to be very generous with their time, their expertise, and their willingness to connect people.
Yes.
And so while that's not necessarily a shared agenda or a collaboration in a formal sense, I think the more we see each other as there's plenty of people who need help, there is plenty of work to go around. May we all be busier than we can imagine ourselves to be, and then share that abundance with others who we know do great work for good people. So the more we can have that orientation too of this is not about scarcity, this is about abundance. And we can all be successful, even if we're doing like and similar things, because we're still doing them in a different way. And people will still use their discernment to choose one of us or all of us at different times in their journey.
Yeah, totally true. And that how you shared that that additional insight around that, people sharing networks and talking about and lifting people up and all of those other things that I deem as collaborations. That's exactly what I'm seeing is, people opening networks up because we're all moving forward to create the greater good as that collective, whatever that rolls out to be. And that's often not one idealized thing. There's lots of things within that, but again, it's just that collective sort of moving forward gracefully. So coming full circle in what's been an incredible conversation, thank you very, very much. What are the key insights that you would like to sort of recap and share with the audience that enables them to have the forward movement that they'd be looking for, that you like to give so freely, and inspiration you give so freely to your clients?
Don't wait for the perfect time to think about what you want legacy to be, whether that's with a big capital L or a lowercase l. I believe you have a vision of what the fruits of your labor will allow you to enjoy. And it is now in this moment where you are laying the groundwork for that to be true. So you don't have to wait for you don't have to wait for the kids to leave home or be done with college or for your 401k to be matched. You don't need a special event to trigger this. I would say that this is the time to really think about what it is you want the outcome of all the work you've done in your life to be, and then to start to engage people in conversations about how might that be. How might we do that? Whether that's your team of how do I need to change my relationship to the business? What do we need to do? Maybe it's your advisors to find out what you legally or financially need to do to actually get the outcome that you're hoping will occur. Or maybe it's your family, because a lot of times families, I say, like, I was raised in a family business. My dad owned the business, but because it was our main source of income, we were all involved in some way, shape, or form. And so every business, in my opinion, is a family business, even if only one of the family members is working in it. And so this is the time to have those conversations, and to talk about whatever assumptions you might have, and to explore what the next decisions you make as a parent, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a leader, how each of those decisions helps you get closer and closer to what you want.
I think there's some key things in there as it relates to assumptions when it comes to family business, and from lots of different perspectives is a good conversation to have. The other thing that I really wanted to touch on, and I think is something quite profound, is the difference between the capital L or the lowercase l as it relates to legacy. And sometimes you can, if I look at my example of that, in my world, I have lots and lots of people around me that have got really ginormous capital L's as it relates to what they're doing. They've got extraordinary large businesses with extraordinary large teams, and they're global, etc. Now, from comparisonitis gets in and all the rest of it, and I can be nudged to thinking that I'm actually looking at the capital L in my business, but this was work we did over Christmas, and for me it wasn't. Yes, I want to leave a massive impact and help them do their versions of legacy, but for me as an individual, and from having a family business and a lifestyle business, I was able to discern that it was actually a lowercase l for me personally. And God, that was so freeing, because I then suddenly had the flexibility, coming back to using your words, to the freedom that I wanted was the flexibility. It wasn't the freedom with the large this and the large that and the red carpets and all the rest of it, but just actually having that realization of where I'd moved into other people's visions versus my own was so profound over Christmas. So yeah,
I'm so glad you had that experience, because we get caught up in other people's definitions of success. It's very easy to chase those. And I'm guilty of it.
Doing it.
You don't, because it's normalized as, wouldn't we all want those things? And that's why I say, like, if there's the thing in the back of your head that you're afraid to say out loud because you feel like someone will judge you, like, if you want to have a double wide trailer in the woods so that you can spend every day, all day around nature and fishing and hunting and playing in the with the earth.
Yep, you got my attention already.
That's your goal. It doesn't have to be my goal.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to have a Lamborghini, that is not my goal. But if that's part of what you feel like will be part of a fulfilling life, then say that. Like, there's no shame in that. Because this is the only go round to have the relationships you want to have, the things you want to have, if those, and we're often shamed into not wanting things. But if there are things you want, be honest with yourself, because they require money, and we're going to have to build your business to be able to get you those things, right? Spiritual or faith experiences, and ways to live your values, and then the experiences you want to have with all those people that you want to be in relationship with. And again, it might be, I just want to have Sunday dinner with my family, all gathered around the table. It does not have to be, I want to take my family on an international adventure. It just needs to be what you know to be true to you about what makes you happy and what will make you fulfilled.
Yeah.
And then find somebody you trust to share that with, because then they can help you build it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for me, that the legacy piece, coming back full circle to that and just coming off of the words that you've just shared there, it's the expression of you in all of the areas, your values, your personality, what drives you, what makes things fun, who you want to be around, the things that you want to have, the things that you want to do, the person you want to be. They're all of those things. But all of those things start with the go round you've got now, and having those profound question asking conversations with yourself.
Yes. And if you net out that what you really want to do is be involved in your business for as long as possible in a way that is fulfilling and meaningful to you, there is nothing wrong with that. I simply don't want it to be completely dependent on you. So that should you change your mind, you can step away and do something else if you want to. Because there are people who really do want to work, that their work gives them meaning and purpose, and they see themselves showing up at this place with these people for as long as they are able to. And there is nothing wrong with that. I just don't want it to be the only choice you have.
Thank you. And how can people get in contact with you?
purposefirstadvisors.com, Christy Maxfield on LinkedIn, and C Maxfield at purposefirstadvisors.com if you'd like to just email me directly.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing so much of your collective wisdom today, and so much and so many of your stories, particularly your very good questions. I'm going to making sure we've got the transcript and making sure we've got those questions highlighted. So thank you again for helping everybody step into more of who they are and discover the legacy for themselves within themselves, and the legacy that they want to leave externally as well. So thank you very much for sharing so much powerful and empowering information with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it greatly. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Till then, thank you. And we will see you on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Till then, take care.
Remember, if you want to be sought after and sold out, as well as being known as the obvious expert in your industry, you need to speak with Sally, our host of Success Secrets Exposed. Sally is the founder of Monetize Your Content, a done-for-you content marketing agency that helps you be easy to buy. See you next week on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV.